I had my Seestar S50 pointed at the M81 and M82 galaxies for 10 hours, and we were able to create an amazing image here in Pixinsight. I'm going to show you guys how to do it right now. My name is Chad. This is the Easy Astro Images channel, and we are going to play with some photons today. So if you haven't seen my last video of where we took somebody's image of Orion and made it into a beautiful Seestar image, you can go ahead and check it right here. So this is a full, I'm going to say slightly made for beginner, but also advanced way of using Pixinsight. So don't worry, any of you will be able to follow along. Data down below and the link to the Google Drive along with all my other stuff. So if you want to play with any other Astro data with your Pixinsight program that you purchased, you are good to go. Now, I do also want to say that if you want to hit the join button and support what we can do for $1 a month on YouTube, you can do that or use one of the Amazon affiliate links below. So here we go. How do we go from something like this right here to something like this right here? Well, that's what we're going to do right now. Now, in order to process the data, the first thing we need to do is we need to integrate all of our subs together, all 2,000 of these things. And what I'm using is I'm using the SETI Astro suite just because it's really free and it's really easy. Pixinsight will do this for you, but it will bark at you and complain that you don't have darks and flats and all this other stuff, but you can get the job done in Pixinsight. But the SETI Astro suite is free, and it's always another cool astronomy tool to play with. Especially I saw today that he added a little star spike adder, and I know a lot of people have been doing that on their Seestar images. So if anybody's program is going to do it the best, it's definitely going to be Frank's. So make sure you head on over to SETI Astro and check that out. So once these are all done stacking, we'll go ahead and bring that up in Pixinsight. All right, so an hour and a half later after stacking that is what we got. So one of these days, I'm going to try to stack this in Pixinsight and see what actually happens. And one of the big issues we had is we had a freaking full moon, you know, and it was 99% the other night, but we still got the 10 hours of data. How much of it was rejected and how much we could actually get rid of, I just threw it all in there. I said, to hell with it. You know, let's let this little thing just earn its freaking keep. So this is what we got. Now, what I'm going to do is it's got the normal little screen stretch applied to it right up here. So if you just click on the little nuclear icon, then you can see that we've got, you know, what's going on here. If yours ends up coming out like green, just hold the control button and press the little nuclear icon. And keep in mind, all these processing things that we do are pretty much what I do with 99% of my images. So you really don't have to do a whole lot different. We're just working with Seestar data here. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to go through in a video probably soon, so make sure you subscribe, and I'm going to load my process icons just because it's a little bit easier for me. I'll go and show you guys. Most of the stuff here over here is just where I go up to processes, and then I will select a process, for example. So I know that my noise exterminator right now is outdated, so I'm going to click on that and it's going to open it up. So let me go ahead and just delete this over here so we can show you what's going on. So typically when I run noise exterminator, these default settings are the first thing that I usually do. So in order to set these up, what you're going to do is just click on this little triangle, drag and drop it, and then you can close this right here, right click on that and just give it a new name, Noise X Basic. And we're going to click on OK, and then I'll just move it over here to my list. And then when you're all said and done, what we're going to do is just drag and drop over everything. We're going to right click, and then we're going to set Save Selected Icons. And basically what that's going to do is that is going to save you an entirely new set. So when you get into Pixinsight, you don't have to go over here and drag and drop and look for everything that you need to do. I really need to redo these because I don't really like the order that they're in now. It doesn't really follow a lot of my processing steps that I'm using. But anyway, so let's go ahead and work on this image here. And you can see we've got rotation, gradients, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But we've got some beautiful integrated flux nebula that we picked up in this. And I compared this to the image that I stacked just from one night, and a lot more of it came out. And it's also pretty clean for Seestar data. So we're going to want to crop all this stuff out though, because if we have this stuff in here, it is just going to it's going to give Graxpert and stuff just a super fit. So what I'm going to do is click on this other nuclear icon here, which is going to give us a super stretch and kind of give us a better idea of what we can do. So we're going to go to processes and dynamic crop, which I actually have a little dynamic crop tool over here that we can just click on. And then you can either drag and drop from the corners, or you can go where you've got like this little button here if you want a little bit more finite control. So I'm going to come in to about right there. We're going to do a pretty heavy crop here because it's just going to make things way easier on us. So we're going to lose like a lot of our flux nebula that we picked up and everything else. But, you know, the galaxies are the main star of the show, right? And then initially I tried to like not have a border where I'm cutting off edges of stars and all that stuff, but we're just going to kind of leave it where it is for right now. Now I can probably get away with having a little bit of that stuff going on here. So let's just bring that to like right there and see what happens. And we'll click on the little check mark. And that there is our image. And now we can reset that back to the normal stretch. And that's what we're left with. So that doesn't look too bad at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this just because it's a personal preference. And we would go to processes and go down to fast rotation. I'm just going to go 90 degrees counterclockwise. And then we are going to drag and drop this little blue triangle right onto our image. And that is going to rotate it. And we can go ahead and cancel that. So now we can make this thing a little bit more, you know, a little bigger, so that way we can kind of zoom in a little bit more and see what we're working on. So that is our image. So let's go ahead and do some background extraction on this baby. So this thing's a complete shit show, that's for sure. So we can either use SETI Astro's automatic DBE, or we can use Graxpert. I'm sure a lot of you already have Graxpert. I would highly encourage you though to download the set of SETI Astro suite tools. And I'm going to leave my smoothing at like 1 because we have a pretty decent simple gradient, and I'm not going to worry about showing the background model. And then we're just going to hit the little check mark here. And that did a pretty good job of everything. So we'll go ahead and just reset our screen stretch and make sure that we're happy with all that. I am definitely happy with that for right now. So let's start working on the actual image. Let's go ahead and pull up a Blur Exterminator. So I have Blur Exterminator set up in just the correct only form first. And what this is going to do is just kind of take the edge off of everything and do a little bit of optics fixing, which we obviously need a lot because, you know, we're dealing with the Seestar data here. But don't let all of that ruin your day, because I love my Seestar and I am all in on this thing. So now I've opened up Blur Exterminator in its default configuration. And what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of edge off the halos, and I'm going to sharpen the stars just a little bit more. And we're going to leave sharpen non-stellar alone for right now. And we're going to let it go ahead and calculate its own PSF, which is the point spread function, the size of the stars across the image. So we'll just drag and drop that on here and let it do its thing. And if you want to go ahead and zoom in and take a look at that, you can see just how good of a job Blur Exterminator has done. And we can always, of course, go look at our galaxy, and we can go forward on that, and we can see that, you know, we got a little bit of sharpening left in there, but we will use this tool again later on. Now, some people might think that this is a little aggressive. When I look at it, I kind of think it is. So I'm actually going to roll back a little bit, and I'm going to just basically reset the tool to defaults. And we can worry about our star brightness later when we bring them back in to the image. So, all right, that looks a little bit better. Go ahead and get rid of that. Next thing we need to do is a color alignment on this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to need to tell Pixinsight where this is in the sky, and then we're going to apply a couple tools. So in the previous videos, and a lot of time I use linear fit and statistics, but I think a lot of people like more automated type of things. So what you're going to do is you're going to go up here and click on script, and you are going to go down to astrometry, and you're going to go to image solver. And this is going to pull up a screen, and it's going to pull in all of the details of the image and everything that are embedded in the FITS files that are saved on your actual Seestar. So then what we're going to do, I can't remember if we got to drag and drop here, or nope, we got to hit OK. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to go through, and it is going to basically plate solve this image and tell the next tool what it needs to do with everything. And the next tool is going to be the photometric color calibration that everybody, uses and talks about. It's built into Serial and everything else. Now, typically what you would do is you would put in all of your sensor information and everything in here. And we don't really know what kind of sensor this has. We know it has like a basic Sony sensor probably in it, but we're not 100% sure like what filters that you can put in. You can get really detailed with this. What we really need to do though is we need to give it a reference space to work with. So we're going to click on this little button right here, which is the preview, and we're going to just drag and drop here in dead space. And then we're going to go down here and click on region of interest, go to from preview and select preview 1 and click OK. And that's going to give us like a background reference. And then what we can do is drag and drop, and that's going to go through, and it's going to give you like a crazy graph here, like kind of like a before and after. So it's going to basically say which stars are more to the blue, which are more to the green, so and so. Typically you would see all of your stars kind of lined up in a little bit better line, but since we're kind of dealing with Seestar data again, this is what we got. So we're going to reset the screen transfer function again. I'm going to click on preview and just delete that preview right there. So now we're going to get on to the real meat and potatoes here. I'm going to go ahead and make a clone of this image. So again, I like doing all the steps here to show everybody what these little things are capable of. So this is what we're going to work on here now for our stars. So we're going to go ahead and stretch this image, and then we're going to denoise it, and then we are going to actually use the stars from this image as our actual stars. So the reason why is because I like to use the screen transfer function here. So we can do a linked stretch. So click on the little chain and click on the little nuclear icon. And then we're going to go to processes, histogram transformation, and bring that up. And then what you want to do is grab this blue triangle and bring it down here and just drag it on the taskbar. And now we're going to take this blue triangle and drop it on here, and the whole screen's going to go white. So let's cancel the screen transfer that's on there, and we can get rid of that. And now we have our stretched image, which has our stretched stars that we do want. So let's go ahead and denoise these stars in this image, and we'll go ahead and boost this up maybe to about 0.8. I clicked on the little checkbox right here to denoise the color, and we'll go ahead and drag and drop that there. And it's going to do the whole thing on the entire image, but more importantly, it's going to do it with the stars. And right away, you can see we are looking pretty freaking sweet already. We've got all kinds of the Flux Nebula showing up here. Bortle 6, guys. Seestar 50. I mean, come on. Can you believe the day and age that we live in here? So let's go to Star Exterminator, and this is another one of those RC Astro tools. It's going to add to the price of Pixinsight for sure. They've got 30-day free trials. I highly recommend you give it a go and see if you think it is worth it. I believe it totally is, and this is what is going to allow you to get the best out of your Seestar data. Now we can close the tools and we can get rid of the background image. So we've got our stars going on here, and what I'm going to do is just go ahead and work on those a little bit. So I'm going to pull up the selective color noise removal tool, the SCNR, and we're going to get rid of the green in our stars, even though it doesn't look like there's much in there. There probably is. And then I'm going to open up the curves transformation, and I'm going to click on the little S right here. And I'm going to give this a couple bumps in the middle of the curve. And what we're doing is just adding some color and saturation to our stars. So I think about 3 little bumps is probably good enough. So, and if you want to zoom in, you can go ahead and do that. And you can go back and you can see how it just makes little subtle, you probably can't even see it. I can, but it is what it is. So let's go and right click on the little tab there, and we're going to change the name of this to stars just so we know what we're doing. And we can go ahead and minimize it and drop it down here. Now let's pull up this image here. So let's get rid of these stars first, and then we can work on this shit show. So let's see. We don't need a star image now. We don't need to worry about none of that. We're just going to drag and drop and get our stars out of there. And this all stuff runs really quick. So even on a average computer with the Seestar data, you shouldn't have any problem running any of this stuff at all. So we can close that out. Let's go ahead and kill the stretch, and then I'm going to go ahead and we can do a couple things. You can use various stretching tools, or you can stretch the data yourself. So I want to stretch the data myself, so I'm going to go to the histogram transformation and click on the live preview. And this is something that everybody needs to practice and work with. I think it's really simple. So just grab your middle slider here and drag it over, and then come down, click on the square. It's kind of an iterative process. Reset with the little crossbar. Do the same thing. Just kind of rinse and repeat this a couple times, and eventually what you're going to see is your histogram here is going to start moving over. So when it starts to move over a little bit, what you want to do is grab the black slider a little bit and start playing with that. And then let's just start working on these sliders here. So some people like to not cut data off. Some people don't mind cutting rid of data because they think it's a little bit useless data. So it's kind of up to you, like, what you think you want to do. Reset the tool again. Take a look at our image as far as what's going on. And I think we can probably move the black point over a little bit. Sometimes your real-time preview will freeze up and you'll have to kind of get rid of it like I just did and restart it. So that way you can see what the hell's going on. And we're just going to keep on stretching this a little bit more and a little bit more. And then this is kind of a hazy area of space, especially this zoomed in. So I'm not going for like complete blackness here, even though, it might make things kind of stand and pop out a little bit more. And, I don't want to overstretch like the cores and all that stuff, but I think what we'll do is my old school type of method to kind of resolve all that stuff. So I'm going to kind of just make sure everything is, this is 25% right here. So we're like around 22, 23 on everything. I think that looks good right there. And we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And now if we run noise exterminator, and we'll keep it at some really conservative settings, except we're going to do all of the color noise. Let's drop that on there and see what it looks like. And that did a pretty freaking amazing job right there. That is for sure. Let's get to work on this thing a little bit more. So the first thing I want to do is let's get rid of this green. So once you have your icons set up here the way you want to, you can actually just drag and drop them onto your image. So just like that, we got rid of our green. Totally awesome. So let's start working on this stuff, but we got to be really careful. We need to go ahead and start doing some masks right off the bat so we can protect stuff. So I'm going to go to process, all process, and I'm going to go to range selection. And the very first thing I want to start making sure that we protect is our cores. So those are very important because there's so much going on in there. So I'm going to drag the lower limit slider all the way over until I literally just have those cores there. And I'm going to fuzz it out a little bit with the smoothness slider like that, and click on this button here. And that is going to make our core mask. So I'm going to actually make that core because we might have to come back and use it again. And then if you just grab it and drag it and drop it underneath your image over here and let go, it's going to apply the mask. And red protects. So everything except for the cores is being exposed. You can either see it if you want to. If you go up here, we can invert it so we can protect the cores and work on everything else. But that's not what we're going to do right now. So let's go back to here, and then I'm going to click on my curves transformation process tab and the little square, and we're going to reset everything and click on the real-time preview. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of brightness out of the cores here so we can start to reveal some actual detail that's in there. And you don't want to go super crazy. It works a little bit better if you go in iterative steps. So click on the square to apply it, reset the tool, come back down, do it again, and probably just one more little nudge down should get us what we need. I think that looks good. So cool. All right, now let's go ahead and click on the S for saturation, and then let's just bump up the saturation a little bit on the cores as well. You can go all in full ham if you want to, but we just want to bring in a little bit right now because we're going to make a mask that is even bigger. So we're going to click on apply, good, cancel, and then let's go ahead and remove mask. And now we're going to go back to our friend again, the range selection tool, and we're going to click on the real-time preview. And now we're going to go up to this lower limit and we're going to move it out to the left. Basically, we want to just kind of expand the area that we were working on before. So we don't want to go out until we get all of that kind of stuff. We just want to work on the actual galaxy, and we might have to smooth it out a little bit more. So that looks good right there. And we can go ahead and drag and drop that onto the screen. So now you can see what we're working on, and the whole reason we want to do this is we want to work on a little bit of contrast, iterative processes. You got to be really gentle with this data. So let's reset this. Let's click on the check mark here, and there's our histogram. And if we hover over this, we can see that all of our galaxy data is kind of all up in there, and then we got everything else here in the background. So I want to just grab like right here and just bring all of that up just a touch. Just a little bit of extra brightness on that right there. And then saturation, we're going to do the same thing. So just, you know, we don't want to go all the way full ham yet. Let's just go a little bit above that line right there. And that is good. So if you want to just keep on working on your galaxies and you don't care about the stuff in the background, you can repeat that process that I just did a couple more times. But I want to start working on everything else in here. So what we're going to have to do is let's go ahead and get rid of this. If we take our mask and invert it, now we can see that it's going to protect all of the galaxies and stuff, but it's not going to protect the flux nebula that I want to bring out in the background. So let's go ahead and remove this mask, and then I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to change the name to Galaxy so we know that that is our galaxy mask. And now we're going to go back into that range selection tool again, and we are going to click on the real-time preview, and let's go ahead and decrease the fuzziness all the way down so we can see what we're doing. So we're going to start to just pull up on this, and we're not going to be able to capture all this, right? Because we just don't have enough like aperture and data and everything else that's going on there. So what we want to do is just try to get as much of it as we can. And, you know, it's kind of a tit for tat type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with that right there. And let's apply that to our image and see what we got. So we can see that there's areas that are in the mask that it's going to allow us to make some actual changes to. So the first thing I want to do is I want to invert it because I want to protect all this stuff. So I can see that we're still leaving some Flux Nebula data on the table, but again, we got to kind of go with what we got. So let's go to the curves transformation, bring up the real-time preview, and what we want to do is just find this background noise, and we're just going to drop that background darkness, and that actually helped reveal a lot of that stuff. So, and you don't, it's up to you if you want to go full black, but I want to have a little bit of haze and a little bit of grain left in there because that is where the details lie. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Now let's go to this mask and let's invert it and pull up the curves transformation tool again. So now we're just going to be working on all of that extra bright stuff. So we can see it, the very faint stuff is like right there in our histogram. So it's just to the right side of it. So I'm going to grab that slider and just actually want to go a little bit further to the left because you can see how it was kind of bowing up right there. So I just want to go this far without going crazy on all of this right here. So, because it looks like I'm getting, on the screen that I'm recording on, I can see that it looks a little glowy and a little too glowy for me, but everything else looks pretty cool. So let's go ahead and add some saturation into all of this. Just a little bit at a time. Okay, that looks good. And that looks good. So if you want to do this one more time, you could invert the mask and bring up your real-time preview. And again, this is something that we can just kind of play with, like if we want to bring a little bit more of a space glow into everything, or if you want to make things a little bit darker. So I think I'm just going to gently raise things just a little bit, so that way we just get more of an overall type of a glowness to the image. I'm really digging the glow on this for some reason. So let's get rid of the mask, remove mask. And then, you can see we've got detail and structure that is going like all the way out into here. So I really just don't want to kill it. I think what we need to do though is we need to take that mask and we need to, let's see here. Let's make one more mask here, and let's go and try to get all of our galaxy structure. So we're going to turn that on, and I'm going to click screen, because if you click screen, you can actually see the entire image, what's going on behind it. So I want to try to just encompass all of the glow that's going on there. So we really need to just blur that out too. And let's go ahead and drag and drop that. And now you can see how the mask is a lot thinner. It's not as harsh. So if we go into curves transformation now, this should allow us to just kind of pull back on the glow just a little bit, so it looks a little bit more natural. Yeah, like that. So now it kind of blends into space just a little bit more. And that looks good. Add a little bit more saturation to the picture. And that looks good. All right, I am liking the way that this looks. So there is everything right there. If we want to go back in now and do another range mask, we could, and pull down that background just a little bit more. just to create a little bit more contrast. We're always looking for contrast and color with everything. So let's click on screen here so we can see what we're doing, and let's just go ahead and do something like that, and then let's just fuzz this out a little bit. And now let's apply that, and then let's invert it. And then let's bring up the curves transformation again and make sure we're on the RGBK mode. And then let's look at where our histogram is, and all this stuff is kind of like right there. So let's just pull down on that all just gently. If you go too far, you're going to get back to the oil painting type of look. So let's just pull gently down on everything. And then we'll go into the saturation and just pull down on the saturation a little bit, because there's some color that's going on in there that I don't really want. So I want all the color in my galaxies. I don't want the color in everything else. We're already having a hard enough time with color just because it's hard to pull color out of these kind of images. So let's invert that this time. We could try to add a little bit more saturation into everything. And I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, I'll take that. We got a little bit of like browns and some blues and stuff going on. So overall, that is a very, very pleasing image that's going on. So let's get rid of our mask now. And I think we can probably run a little bit more noise exterminator on this at this point. So we don't want to be like super crazy. In fact, if you wanted to, what you can also do is you can just make like a preview area and run noise exterminator on that area. Drag and drop it. And I mean, you can really see that just turns all that like literally into butter. Butter is good, but so is grain. So let's go back on that one right there. Go forward and go back to our preview, and Control Shift and Z will undo your preview. So let's try noise exterminator at a little bit of a lower value. Okay, that's good. I see just a tiny bit of grain that's left in there, and that's what I'm looking for. So we could probably even just back it down just a little bit more. So let's go down to 0.5, and we'll apply that to the entire image. All right, I'm happy. Let's get rid of that preview, delete that preview, close the RC Astro tool, and now let's put our stars back in and see what happens to this thing. So we're going to go to script, and we're going to go to toolbox, utilities, and image blend. And what we're going to do is we are going to rescreen our stars. So we're going to select our main base image right here, and then we are going to go down here and select our stars. And then we're going to make sure that we are in screen mode. So we can see now that we brought our stars back in. So you can click and drag to zoom in to a certain area if you want to. And you can kind of go down here and grab this opacity slider, and you can play with the opacity slider to basically show how dim or how bright you want to make your stars. So I think I'm going to turn mine down just a touch, and let's double click to reset the zoom. I think that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to click on the checkbox down here to apply that. Close that out, and there is our almost finished image. So not too bad. It covered everything that I want. I got a nice kind of flat image in front of me. I see on the computer screen it's going to look a little bit more punchy for you guys, but for me it's really nice and glowy and dreamy, and I like that. But we are not done yet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run Stark Storm. I'm sorry, so right now we're going to run Blur Exterminator. And what I like to do on this is called my super sharpening technique that I like to do. So we're going to turn all the sharpened stars down because we don't want to, and we're going to turn sharpened non-stellar up to about 0.7, and this is going to make everything just a little bit more crunchy. You can kind of do this however you want to do. There's way more advanced sharpening techniques, but I find that this final little piece at the end is a really awesome trick and tool to use, especially with the Seestar data. And now you can just see how everything just totally crisped up on everything. I mean, now if we do a before and after, so look at the detail that we gained inside of everything. You can see that it affected our stars a little bit, but really what it did was it kind of just brought back some of that contrast and that overall brightness and punch that we lost, and that really contributed to the image. Really did. So to me, I think this is a great final image and a perfect example to show you what the Seestar is capable of. I mean, we have awesome detail. We've got detail going on in the core over here of M82. We've got all kinds of detail going on with the integrated flux nebula. We've got some cool looking stuff going on right here. And, you know, there's definitely still room for improvement. You can see we've got some misshapen stars up there and everything else. But, you know, it is what it is. And if you see all of this cool looking structure and everything that was picked up, if this was taken under a non-full moon night, we would have an amazing image. So there's going to be more of that stuff to come. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. We will talk to you all later. Peace.